Hello again, it's time now for a look at the latest business news. Kate Moody joins us for that. We're talking about the fear of deflation here in France and across the Eurozone.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. Fear about prices starting to get lower across the Eurozone, notably here in France and in Germany, the Eurozone's two largest economies. They both reported very weak inflation rates for the month of July, meaning consumer prices rose less than expected. Now, while lower prices sound like a good thing for consumers, a spiral of falling prices can actually hamper economic activity, reducing overall consumer spending and dragging down the wider economy. Luke Brown explains.
Not exactly what the European economy was looking for. Inflation in France in July falling 0.3% on the previous month, a seasonal decline in part down to the annual summer sales. To make matters worse, France, joined by Germany, posting year-on-year inflation figures well below the 2% level targeted by the European Central Bank. That raises the spectre of deflation, or a situation where prices actually fall, as a long-term decline in growth hurts consumer confidence and feeds into a negative cycle.
The real risk is that it will set off a vicious circle. Consumers expect to see prices fall, so they're encouraged to spend less and less. That aggravates the deflationary situation, and without an intervention from the authorities, the central bank, the situation will get worse by the day.
The problem is increasingly European. Spain, Portugal and Greece are already in deflation, meaning efforts to counter it require a European response.
The European Central Bank, aided by national governments, has to prove that it believes that inflation will return at some point, not only by announcing investment by the states, but also by indicating that the central bank is ready to intervene and do whatever it takes to reach a balanced level.
The impact will be felt at a national level too. Falling prices and sales will hurt state revenue from value-added taxes, the government's biggest source of income. Paris has calculated its VAT revenue of 136 billion euros on annual inflation at 2.5 times the recent levels. The likely shortfall set to damage efforts to reduce the national deficit.
Now, the UK got some better news as official figures showed the unemployment rate edging towards a 6-year low. The number of jobless people fell by 132,000 to just over 2 million. That's a rate of 6.4%, lowest since late 2008. The government, though, has expressed concern about low wage inflation. That means average wages, excluding bonuses, rose by just 0.6% in the year to June, the slowest rise since records began in 2001. The Bank of England says that will play into the decision about if and when to raise interest rates. Now, the market shrugged off most of that data this Wednesday. Europe followed a positive trend from Asia. The market's being driven by optimism about the situation in Ukraine. Germany's DAX led gains there, closing up just under 1.5%. CAC 40 here in Paris ending up 0.78%. Wall Street also finished the trading day in the green. That despite some disappointing figures on retail sales. Sales across the U.S. increased just 0.2% last month, the weakest since January, held back by very weak sales in the auto sector. We saw shares of Amazon.com doing very well on Wall Street, though, up about 3%, as the online retail giant unveiled a payment system for mobile devices designed to rival PayPal and Square. Turning to some of the day's other business headlines now, the U.S. department store Macy's saw its shares sink 6% as it cut its full-year outlook. It said it wouldn't make up the shortfall from the start of the year when winter storms kept shoppers at home. Its second quarter profits did rebound a bit, with overall sales up 4%. The Italian fashion house Roberto Cavalli may become Russian. Talks are underway for the investment arm of Russia's VTB Bank to buy a majority 60% stake in Cavalli for 500 million euros. VTB is Russia's second largest state-controlled bank and has recently been hit by Western sanctions. But that doesn't seem to be a deterrent for the fashion designer who's been trying to sell part of his business for years. And two British high street stores are hoping to take root in China. Topshop and Miss Selfridge have reached an agreement to launch on Shangpin.com. It's a retail website in China next month. The site boasts 5 million users, and it's a huge market for the Topshop brand, which first opened its flagship store in Hong Kong last summer. So that's a little fashion roundup there, so we'll end on a slightly different note. That's the war of the gaming consoles. Sales of Sony's PlayStation 4 have hit the 10 million mark. That's less than a year after the gaming system made its debut. Its competitor, Microsoft's Xbox One, which also hit the market last November, had sold about half that number by last month. The PS4 has been a huge boost for Japan's Sony, which is struggling to return to profitability. It also announced it would introduce a new function called Share Play this autumn that allows gamers to share titles with their friends so they can play together, even if they don't, in fact, all own the same game there. That's it for this round of the business news. I'll send it back to you, Mark.
Imagine, Kate, if they created the France 24 game. What fun we could have with that. Kate Moody there with all the business.